That's why you get paid. Good morning. Welcome to SJU, guys. Dive in, strap in, in the inn, because this is what we train for, people.
This is not a drill.
This is not a drill. The Handmaid's Tale finale happened 2 weeks ago, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet.
No. The Snyder Cut has been shown to Jason Momoa.
Yes.
Yeah. 100% of our show is going to be about that. I kid. It's about Spider-Man, as the thumbnail will have told you by now. I don't know, Dan, we've talked a lot about how we are in the darkest timeline. I don't know if this is the darkest timeline. I think that the universe shifted yesterday, and we're just in a slightly different timeline.
This is my fault.
Yeah, okay.
What'd you do, Joe? We finished SJU yesterday, and I walked into the writer's room, and I said, it's starting to get exhausting how slow news has been.
And then
trying to build SJUs around. Yeah, and so then the rainforest caught on fire, and the Spider-Man thing happened, and the Matrix happened, and Jason Momoa was like, I saw the Snyder Cut and it was sick! Like, everything happened at once, and this is my fault.
Was your hand on an artifact or a skull?
Perhaps a monkey's paw.
Yeah.
I was going like this.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That'll do it.
All right. Well, I think that we're starting to source the trace of things. I will say this. You guys probably already know this right now. My hair's crazy.
It looks good.
Thank you. You probably know this by now, but Spider-Man has forsaken the MCU. As of yesterday, it was revealed that Kevin Feige would no longer be a producer on the Spider-Man movies for Sony. There was one clip that I thought was pretty amazing that was embedded in one of the articles that was an interview with Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal for, I think it was Far From Home, and the reporter, a German reporter, I believe, was asking her essentially, would we potentially see, would we see, please, Venom?
Oh.
Yeah, and Morbius. With the
MCU?
Yeah, we're offensive. And that's your bit of that for today. But she was like, yeah, they basically exist in a universe where Spider-Man exists. It's sort of adjacent, blah, blah, blah. And it was really amazing because the camera, the camera had just, in editing, had pushed in on Kevin Feige, who was just going,
do they now?
Do they? Interesting. I hadn't known that. And so now, apparently, there were some negotiations that went awry. Initially, everybody was like, burn Sony and all of its children, because it seemed like Sony was the one that was kind of pulling out of the deal. And then later, Sony released a statement basically saying that they were very, very disappointed. And it wasn't them, but they had come back in negotiations and they couldn't make a deal work with Marvel. Here's what Sony said. Much of today's news about Spider-Man has been mischaracterized. Recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in the franchise. We are disappointed, but respect Disney's decision not to have him continue as a lead producer of our next live-action Spider-Man film. We hope this might change in the future, but understand that the many new responsibilities that Disney has given him, including all their newly added Marvel properties, do not allow time for him to work on IP they do not own. Kevin is terrific, and we're grateful for his help and guidance and appreciate the path he has helped put us on, which will continue. Like, that makes sense, right? They don't own Spider-Man. And so Kevin Feige really does only have so much time, and he's now got the X-Men on his plate and the Fantastic Four. Maybe Disney was like, you either have to give us more rights or a different deal or a better deal to make it worth, like, we can't spare our guy.
Well, maybe. They said, they wanted to go from 5% to 50-50.
Right.
That's a big jump. And well, I don't know if I understand this exactly, because me stupid, but they don't split the cost at all of Spider-Man movies. Sony funds everything, makes everything. They just kick Disney 5% for letting them incorporate the MCU? Like, what's the 5% for?
I think it's that. I think it's the shared universe, and then they borrow, and also the talent, and they borrow Spider-Man for the MCU. Like, in the deal, obviously, the MCU is able to use Spider-Man. Now, here's the piece, and correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody fact check this. I think Marvel still has all of the merchandising.
Yes,
is that right?
Do. Yeah.
So for them, it's like, if Spider-Man is a success theatrically, people are buying more merchandise. So it still behooves them. It still behooves Marvel to make that work. But the distinction of that is, like, I don't know if it's Marvel proper that's getting that, Disney or Marvel Studios. Like, I would imagine it's Marvel proper. I don't know.
The merchandise.
The merchandise.
Yeah, I don't.
According to Eric, it's just Disney and Marvel proper own merchandise rights.
Right.
And make all the money off those products.
Right. So it's still like Spider-Man, I think, was making $1 billion in merchandising, right?
I love that we talk to Ryan as if he has a microphone in front of him. When in
You can sort of hear him on headphones.
He hasn't earned it.
So Disney has the merchandise. So like that's pretty high incentive, right? Those dollars, those merchandising dollars, you want to make this thing work.
Yeah.
If you're getting that, if you're reaping those rewards.
Yeah, it just seems like Disney's really strong-arming Sony, who they know are vulnerable, and they know this is all they have.
That's what you do in the mob wars.
Yeah, it does seem like more of a mob threat than a negotiation in good faith.
Yeah, there's a lot of mouses and a lot of beds right now, buddy.
Yeah.
A lot of mouse heads.
I like that wouldn't be effective because there's a big chance you don't see the mouse head because it's tiny.
Right. Plus, wouldn't Disney be cutting off the head of something at Sony that they wouldn't like?
They don't have an animal that I can use.
A lot of
Sony doesn't
Bandicoots.
have an animal.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, what are they going to cut off? Slimer?
Yeah.
Did they get the message? I bet they did, boss. It takes days to notice the mouse head.
Yeah, it's tiny. I washed it on accident.
It went in the laundry.
This seems dumb to me. For everyone involved.
Yeah.
This is what I said yesterday. This is a lose-lose to me. Marvel, the MCU, has set up Spider-Man as such a huge player in that universe that for him to just disappear would be really weird, and I don't know how you would explain it. And then for Sony, so much of Spider-Man's storyline, it seems like, is tied to being connected to the MCU. I think this is public negotiation, honestly. I think this is two companies that both realize that they have a bargaining chip, and I think that they didn't come to terms that that they were happy with, and so they're testing the waters, and they can both point to public reaction and say, like, see? I would actually be surprised if... I don't see how this is stupid for both of them.
It's more
dumb.
harmful to Sony, though. I mean, okay, creatively, it's more harmful to the MCU, I think, right? Because they have to explain somehow what happened to Spider-Man in that universe. For Sony, they just have to like not skirt around Tony Stark and the things that have become important to Spider-Man and the snap. But actually, it's hard for them creatively too, unless you go into alternate dimensions, of which we are in, as mentioned earlier. But
a Spider-Verse,
financially, if you were to look at this just financially, if you're Sony, and imagine that Marvel Disney was coming back and asking for 50-50 all of a sudden instead of 5%. I doubt it's that much, but let's say that it's like a really hefty chunk of it. And they're like, okay, Spider-Man made $1 billion for us, right? Which I believe it did, right? So it made $1 billion.
First movie ever, Spider-Man movie ever, unadjusted to make $1 billion.
So they're like, okay, that made $1 billion for us. We're walking away after everything with X $million, maybe $500 million, right? In profits. If we were to take away 50% of that net and give it to Marvel, we're walking away with $250 million in profits. Let's say we make a subpar Spider-Man movie, we're probably still going to walk away with more money than we would if we made that deal. And we're a vulnerable studio. They're a powerhouse set to destroy everyone before them, and they are the empire.
They did set the Amazon rainforest on fire.
Notably.
It's part of this negotiation.
Also news of today. So like to them, why Sony, their hands are tied. What can they do? I know that I'm about to get a lot of internet hate, and I'm not saying that I'm happy about the deal. And why are you defending Sony? I'm just like, they're in a no-win situation.
They're being crushed. And frankly, screw you, internet. Like, someone should spit in Disney's face once in a while just to let them know that they can't do absolutely anything they want to, and be like, you know what? We just signed Lord and Miller to $900 million production deal.
That deal makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin Feige. Like, you have the formula down. Like, let's give Spider-Man to someone else, and they'll write him out of the MCU and start a whole other thing with a new creative team, and it'll probably not make as much as the MCU, but they'll still take home a lot more, and we'll get to live to make films another day instead of another movie studio literally failing.
Yeah, and then the MCU is just going to have to do some kind of switcheroo, like timelines, dimensions.
You know,
Doctor Strange. It's the Fantastic Four, not Spider-Man.
I honestly don't think they do. I think on the creative end, obviously, it's all in execution in terms of like make a good movie, but in purely like, what do we do now? Comics do this all the time. Like, they renumber Spider-Man at #1 and just do a quick catch-up as to who Spider-Man is and do a soft reboot.
They can't do they can't say Spider-Man. Like, you can't have...
Yeah,
exactly, yeah. The next Avengers movie just don't have Spider-Man in it.
You could say the name Peter.
They're fine.
I wonder if I were a lawyer, I would parse and say you could say the name Peter and not note that it's Peter Parker Spider-Man.
But I think creatively they can all just, you know, comics drop storylines all the time. I know Peter was made to be a big anchor by the end of, you know, Far From Home, but comics change course all the time. That's just not a thing now, and they just move forward with 10,000 other characters, and they can do the same thing for Spider-Man. His next movie, which hopefully will still be, hopefully everyone still stays on. I know they're contracted to do 2 or 3 more, I think.
Well, Tom Holland is, yeah.
Tom
Holland is. You just, you know, it's the difference between this arc of Spider-Man had 15 Avengers in it, and then this arc of Spider-Man is getting back to basics, and he's just wearing a normal costume. Yeah, and he meets Venom at the end of it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's likely.
I feel like the other X factor that we don't know about yet, but like, you know, James Gunn was fired until he wasn't, and I think that a large part of the reason why that was revisited was because of the cast so publicly saying we're not on board with this. Now, I don't think Tom Holland is the kind of you know, doesn't have that experience or that I don't give a whatever to do that publicly. But if I were Tom Holland, I would also be like, I mean, so much of that character, first of all, and then it seems like himself personally has been tied into being part of this family, being tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, about Spider-Man and his relationship with Happy Hogan, which was a big part of Spider-Man Far From Home. His tie to Tony Stark, like that is so intrinsic to his character. That's intrinsic to the character that Tom Holland has built. If I were him, I would be upset by this because it's like, well, wait a minute. I've just spent 2 movies plus the Marvel movies building this character, and you're going to take away this huge part of it. I wouldn't be happy about this either. So I think that's also going to come into play is the fact that, you know, he's kind of getting the rug pulled out from under him in a very public way.
But whose hand can be for? I mean, really, it sounds like that if they're putting, and I don't know this to be true, by the way. First of all, I think this is the moment where I should state a public apology because as the woman that single-handedly brought Spider-Man to the MCU, I've obviously failed you, and I'm going to correct that right now. Marvel has to give. They do, because if we're right, and I speculate that we're close to right, that they just made it financially impossible for Sony to say yes, then Sony stands to lose too much. Like, what do they have? What marquee characters do they have? Disney has so many, you know? They've got Pixar, they've got Star Wars, they've got Marvel, they've got so much cachet that it's like, they're the ones that can give, and if we want this to work, they're the ones that are going to have to give.
I agree. I think this is, if this stands, I just don't understand why any party involved would let this happen. This creates ruinous, heinously difficult creative challenges for both of them. And I think that if this actually goes through and they have to do this huge course correction, this may sound overly dramatic, but I think it could be the moment when people look back at the MCU and Marvel and say, like, that's the moment when things kind of started getting wobbly. Because they're going into it's probably their biggest sequence of unknowns right now because, you know, Cap's gone, no Iron Man, Shang-Chi, we'll see. Nobody really knows about Shang-Chi. We have a Doctor Strange movie. I hope that's cool. I'm excited by it, but, like, that's not a billion-dollar necessarily out of the gate hit. We've got Thor. But who knows where they're going to go with that character, how much of it's going to be Chris Hemsworth, how much of it's going to be Natalie Portman. There's a lot of X factors, and the one thing that people were always pointing to when Kevin Feige did that huge thing was, well, there's a Spider-Man movie in there somewhere, and we know that people love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So if you take that away, this doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Yeah. And as a fan, I really hope that this is just a very public way of putting pressure, of both studios putting pressure on the other to come to an agreement, because otherwise this makes absolutely no sense. And by the way, it's terrible for the fans. It's awful for the fans, and you need that relationship. Look what happened with Star Wars when you start losing the fans.
Well, sure.
They don't want that. Nobody wants this. No one wants this. So I hope that somebody steps in and the parties come together and they figure this out, because otherwise nobody wins in this situation. No one.
If it was a public sparring match, it feels like Marvel got the big hit out of the gate because everyone was pissed off at Sony, and the narrative was that they had not been willing to make the deal work, and then Sony, in a beautiful way, I think in the perfect way, because they're like, oh man, God, we love Kevin. If only he'd come back to us. Like they suddenly made themselves like the girlfriend that you're like, well, let me come over and we'll block his phone number and we'll eat chocolate. you know?
Well, the subtle like
they suddenly gain the public sympathy. I think, and you'll correct me, I'm sure if I'm wrong on that.
the trump card to me is them saying like, he's so busy, he doesn't have time to work on things they don't own. And at the end of the day, it's like Spider-Man's on loan. He's being rented to the MCU right now. He's a library book. They can't do whatever they want. I know they're used to it, but like Spider-Man is the lifeblood of an entire movie studio. So they're not going to give up half of that without some major other concessions.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I wonder, because if you're Disney at this point and you have so many other things in the works, you've got Plus happening, you just bought Fox, you're trying to make those characters work. All of these other plus Star Wars, plus Pixar, all of these other franchises, you might just be like, yeah, and for us, we're not motivated any longer because we believe that we can still make this universe work without that character. And so we are no longer motivated to work this hard for a character we don't own. Well, and we won't ultimately see these profits for.
I don't see Kevin Feige thinking. I mean, he always has seen.
It's not his decision.
Yeah, this isn't
it's not
Kevin
his
Feige,
decision
though.
at all.
But I mean, if I'm Kevin Feige,
Alan Horn's decision.
Well, I know, but if I'm Kevin Feige's kind of an important guy over there. So if I'm Kevin Feige, I would also personally be lobbying with Disney, being like, hey, listen, like, what are you doing? Like, do you understand how much trouble this is going to cause? Like, creatively, trying to map this out, like. I would hope that he has some sway there. Also, to try to, this is a big deal. Like, this is a key. This is like if in midway through Phase 2 they were like, oh, we lost the rights to Captain America, so just you gotta, whatever, just do some stuff and figure it out. And they're like, well, he was kind of a big character, so what should we do? It's not like you can't just swap in Mark Ruffalo and now he's Spider-Man. You don't even have Spider-Man. Anymore.
But honestly, Kevin Feige did that's why he's not in the negotiations, because that's not helpful for Disney's side to have Kevin Feige be there and be like, we need him so bad. Like, you don't want Kevin in the room when they're negotiating.
I know, but this is my idealistic Dan popping back out. It's not just about money. It's like what's good for the creative direction of the franchise.
I don't think anybody, including ultimately the people at Disney, care about that. Like, I don't care about that. I think that they do care about that because the creative being strong is what's made them billions of dollars. And it's notable because when it's not in other studios, they don't make billions
of
dollars.
But I can also see Disney being like, we made a tree super cool. We made Captain America cool. We made Iron Man cool. Like, we don't need this.
And I can see Sony being like, well, we made Venom what it was, a big hit that I like a lot of, and we have Lord and Miller, and they made the Spider-Verse. Like, amazing. We don't need them either.
I mean, I don't think that they would say that it wouldn't be beneficial for them to have the connection to the MCU and to have Kevin Feige's creative mind on things, because you would be crazy to think otherwise. I just think they did the math and decided it wasn't worth it if they were going to end up being gutted like a little baby fish. My boys. I don't know. I mean, like, Groot's a plant. It's not important, but he's a plant. That's just he's a plant.
Is he?
He's a plant.
He has like acorns, or like doesn't he drop seeds? No?
Did JT say something?
He has like spores.
He's clearing his throat.
So he's a plant.
Anyways.
He's a plant that's been planted there to spy on the Guardians of the Galaxy. So this is my point, though. Kevin Feige, to your point, probably does care, but he also, to their point, does have a lot on his plate, right? And he's got a lot that he's trying to figure out and work through. And this would be a big piece of that. But I feel like if anyone can, if there are two creative teams that I believe could figure it out, on the one side it's Miller and Lord, and on the other side it's Kevin Feige. Like, I think they can figure it out. Do we want them to figure it out? We don't, but they can.
Well, there's an interesting thing too here where you're sort of talking about like could be a time people look back. Like, I feel like Disney's done a pretty decent job of being like, don't notice we're a monopoly. Like, everybody loves us, fan goodwill. And I feel like a very public, like, they're trying to squeeze our studio dry, like, mob tactic story at this point, like launching Disney Plus and folding in Fox and all that, like, is real bad for them.
No, fans don't care. They just want to see Spider-Man fight.
Some of the fans might care.
I mean, look,
our fans care.
They want to see Spider-Man fight, and they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And the rainforest is on fire.
Right. But the cost of that is one of the few remaining movie studios going out of business. I'm being slightly hyperbolic, but like...
But maybe you're not.
But maybe I'm not. Like, that
Maybe
might be
you're
another
not.
one biting the dust.
And by the way, maybe like if these were real mob wars, I'm not letting it go. Maybe that's the goal.
Yeah. Right?
Who benefits from that?
Sure.
Disney.
Yeah.
It's like a long game of tower defense.
Yeah. Right? Like, just knock them all out.
Yeah.
And then there's one standing, and it owns the world, and it's the movie based on the book, and we're all dead.
Yeah, we go see Disney's, which is what they call movies, in the
Yeah.
last chapter of Cloud Atlas,
Yeah.
which was adapted by the Wachowskis. Story number 2.
The Matrix is getting reloaded again. Now, here's what I want to do at the top of this. So they are Lana Wachowski. This is via Variety. Lana Wachowski is set to write and direct a 4th film set in the world of The Matrix with Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, also reprising their roles as Neo and Trinity, respectively. And now is when I read the Slack messages between me, a confused me, and a knowledgeable Billy this morning. So Billy is a huge fan of the final 2 Matrix movies.
Of course.
That sounds about right.
Yes. I love, like probably the rest of us, the first Matrix movie, and minimally remember those other 2 because I saw the last one opening night in theaters, and then I promptly forgot most of it. So this is me to Billy. Hey, am I missing something here? Neo's dead, right?
No.
And hang on. Also, good morning. Billy says they're both dead. And then it's thinking face. And then he says Trinity dies on the way to the Machine City. Spoilers for 10 years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
Neo is ... less dead, but still dead.
I thought he was absorbed.
And this is what I said. I said he's less dead. I remember the Jesus thing, but is there a Princess Bride thing too? He is partly dead. And then Billy says he sacrifices his body, but it's implied by the Oracle Kinsati at the end that Neo will return in some reincarnated way since he has the powers of the One. And I responded with Dancing Zombie. Now discuss.
Well, if anyone can figure it out, it is a Wachowski and the writer of Cloud Atlas, who was writing the script with them, the guy that wrote the book, is writing it with them. And that's a cool, weird, good book.
I like that book a lot. I actually like that movie more than a lot of people did.
I like pretty much everything the Wachowskis
Me
do,
too.
for
They're
better or worse.
freaking weird. They're weird. Like, not all of it's good. Hang on.
A lot of good ideas in there.
Yeah. Not all of it works.
Yeah.
Not all of it works. A lot of it doesn't work. And not all of it totally connects, but they're all
Who's your favorite Abraxas sibling? Is it Caleb?
Shut up.
Shut up.
Shut up. Not all of it. Okay, Jupiter Ascending is kind of fun. It's not good, but it is kind of fun.
A lot of great ideas in there. A lot of great ideas.
It's weird only calling out Jupiter Ascending as like the only thing they've ever made. Like Sense8 is a fantastic TV show. Speed Racer's visually beautiful.
I like Speed
they made
Racer.
The Matrix. They made Bound. Like
Bound is
Bound is
amazing. The first Matrix is. I'm going to name the things that are unequivocally
and
amazing.
if you're Billy, all 3 Matrixes are unequivocally amazing.
If you're not Billy, though, Bound is amazing. The Matrix is amazing, and then the other things that they've done, even the ones that people have problems and that I have problems with that I think are imperfect, I find either interesting, fun, visually dynamic, or all of the above. And that's Cloud Atlas. Like, it's not a home run. The book is much better. But there's things in there that I think are so worth being on screen when there's so much that's just boring and lifeless.
I find a lot of it boring and lifeless. Like, they take a great idea and then they just blah blah blah. Like, it's all exposition dumps and just describing the world.
Bees no royalty, Spencer.
Bees recognized game. Famously, bees do recognize game. And then they're just like talking about this world that you can tell that they have like a 600-page Bible of like everything they've created, and the movie is like a table of contents. Like, I feel like that's their work. They're like cyberpunk Shyamalan to me.
Well, because Jupiter was supposed to be.
That's me.
Yeah, but even in Glass, we were like, it's not great, but hey, at least it's an original IP.
Yeah.
Like, same thing with this.
Right.
Jupiter was supposed to be a trilogy, and then they were like, no, make that trilogy like 90 minutes long.
That's what all of their movies feel like to me.
Well, the problem with one of the problems with Jupiter was that it ended 3 times. Like, they did the same battle sequence over
Because
twice.
they put 3 movies into
Like,
one movie.
That was annoying, but that was kind of fun. I did. I went in and everybody had hated it so
fine.
much, and I went in with Jim Vejvoda. I remember this, and we were looking at each other, going like, "Oh shit, I like it."
He's an air snowboarding dog man. Like,
He's a half Lycan splice.
I mean, come on.
he's a half Lycan splice.
No one's saying they don't.
Aren't there
I'm
elephant
not bored
stormtroopers?
watching
Did I
a
make that up?
Wachowski
There's one
movie.
elephant.
I am
They're
almost
they're
never
not-
bored. Spencer's
yeah.
bored. I'm not bored watching them.
I'm bored sometimes.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not excited by this. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's like each successive Matrix movie made. The first one did great, and then the second one did great, and then the third one fell off a cliff financially.
Yeah.
The one game changer that I think they have in their pocket
Is the
this
one.
time
It's Keanu.
Well, they have Keanu, but they always had Keanu. But I think if you're looking at it from a financial angle, I think the one game changer they have in their pocket this time that they didn't have, at least not in its current state, in 2004, is the global box office. The global box office is a much bigger force as far as putting out a huge IP like this. So I think that Warner Brothers probably knows that, and they're like, we can launch a global Matrix movie in a way that we couldn't do 15 years ago. So I guess from that angle, it makes sense. Creatively, I don't. Nothing about the Matrix. They made a game-changing movie 20 years ago, and parts of the second one I thought were cool, and the third one was a complete nothing to me. And so I'm not that excited about the fact that now we're gonna have to go jump through hoops and explain why Neo's back, and like there's no
Power of the One, Billy told me in Slack.
yeah, but there's no thread in that mythology. Like, they closed the story was over. They defeated the machines were gone, the Matrix rebooted. It literally ended with the architect and the Oracle
How do you
watching the
remember
sunset.
this?
Exactly.
We were struggling so hard.
No, they
It's over. The
dropped-
story's over.
I mean, they
Literally,
dropped.
how do you remember this?
They dropped the weird open-ended seeds of being like, it's rebooting and we're doing it all
actually in the
again,
Matrix
and
in
there's
Zion.
been lots of ones and this
right.
and that.
I mean, but that's like, I don't need to see that. It's like this will all happen again. Like, cool. The end. I don't need to see it happen again. It's just I know there's probably a lot of people that are super excited for this. That's awesome. I'm just not one of them. I hope they surprise me and come up with it. It's like that's the same way about Toy Story 4, and I really like Toy Story 4. I hope, and that also had Keanu Reeves in it. I hope that they
Not a
come
coincidence.
up,
He's having a moment.
or that Lana Wachowski comes up with a very interesting way to revive this series. But initially, there's just not a lot for me to be like, oh, I can't wait to see that, because I just feel like they ran it into the ground already for me once, and I'm just not like jumping out of my seat over more.
I'm curious. I mean, it could end up being a hot freaking mess. But here's the thing. It's not like something that's sacred where it's like, you're going to ruin this amazing thing. It ended really badly.
It's not like He-Man.
Like,
Sure.
So you either make something that's equally not good or something better. It can only go up, Dan.
Sort of, yeah. And, it is like a great...
I think.
The great missed opportunity...
Go like this.
Famous last words. You can only go up from here, right?
Of course.
No downside. It's all wine and roses.
Yeah. It's such a fun world to play in, like the Animatrix.
The Animatrix is so good.
Is so good. And that's the ball that the second and third movie really dropped.
Yeah.
The
weird game that tied 2 of the movies together was
That was
fun.
cool too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I honestly wouldn't mind if they just ignored the sequels. Like, did a kind of a Terminator thing.
Oh,
and
interesting, yeah.
They're just like, the Neo picks up the phone at the end of the first one and has like a vision of the second and third movies,
Yeah.
and he's like, whoa,
That's weird.
let's not do that, and then go do something else.
That's interesting.
Or honestly, like, it's almost tempering my excitement by bringing back Keanu, because it's just like another story set in the Matrix is kind of more exciting to me than Matrix 4 picking up where Matrix 3 left off.
More raves.
More cave raves.
I still contend that he wakes up as the one, but in the wrong Matrix software, and Will Smith is in that one as the one,
Yes.
and they have
The role
to
he
figure
should have
that out.
taken.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
role he should have taken.
I do think the Animatrix. If you guys haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it because it's great.
It's
These
very
just
pretty.
like little animated stories within that world. It's very cool. I love that. I love the Animatrix.
And good
How dare
backstory,
you.
like how the robots took over.
Yeah.
Oh, I said it's very pretty. Oh, I trust me. I wore out that DVD. Did you know that you can wear out DVDs? I wore out that DVD.
I think it's on Netflix too. I think. Anyway.
I think you're right.
I hope that this movie's great, just so that we can end the 15-year conversation about how the Animatrix is the only thing that redeems, and the video game is the only thing that redeems the Matrix,
Matrix.
series continuing to go on.
Probably.
I mean, here's the weird
crossed.
thing about all of the dystopian, like, futuristic stories, starting with, I would say, 1984, where it's like the idea of Big Brother and like technology being used to take you over in this oppressive totalitarian way, or technology becoming self-aware and inevitably killing you because it's very smart and realizes that we're a bunch of useless meat piles, which is, fair. And the only thing that I think is like no one's nailed is the truth, which is like we couldn't update Big Brother fast enough. Like Big Brother came in like, which Targaryen are you quiz, and we couldn't take that enough.
Oh yeah, we're all Cyrus eating steak,
like,
except it's a BuzzFeed quiz.
Yeah, like 100%. Like every piece of technology that became invasive in our world and became destructive in our world started as some dumb app to distract us from the fact that our world was falling to pissing on fire.
Yeah, I look old now. Yes.
I like old now.
So, strap in and have the Matrix explore just like this was about humanity rising up against the oppressive machines. I think it should be about how humanity doesn't deserve to, because we're super dumb and we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And I'm going to go take my Targaryen quiz.
You got Viserion.
Existential moment release. Usually one of you gets me out of it.
Oh no, you're just doing it
I'm
this one.
really enjoying this.
I was just thinking about yes, Warner Brothers. $1 billion idea.
$1 billion.
Come be bummed out by our Matrix sequel.
Yep.
And hire Denis Villeneuve.
Yes, just yeah.
All right, fine. Or it could just be like the rave the whole time. I don't know.
I'm
Open
also
to that too.
kind of okay with. I don't know.
I'm with Spencer. 100% in the Matrix.
Yeah.
I've seen way too much of Zion. I've seen way too much of dirty people shooting machine guns at the ceiling. I can't do it. No more. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. Give me the. If you're gonna do it in another visually.
Keep
arresting,
keep it visually arresting about two people mass murdering security guards and blue collar workers because they're
They're
not
robots. They were machines too, weren't they?
No, they were just people that weren't unplugged, bro.
No, it should just
So
be
it's okay to murder them.
yes. Keanu hands Trinity a USB drive and says, "You need to get this from one end of the Matrix to the other," and then it's just
Correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause I do not remember, but there is no Matrix anymore.
Sure there was.
I think it rebooted.
What was that park bench? Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the park bench and there's a sunrise. No.
Slack Billy. He'll know.
Yeah, ask Billy. I just remember that it was the architect and the Oracle sitting on a park bench talking
No, they're starting everything over
about how it had all
there's still one.
started over.
Reboot. Incoming game.
But
Ooh,
he
reboot crossover.
also suggested. Remember the really long? I only know this because I did Billy's podcast and he explained all of this to me. You know the really long, pretentious scene where he's like vis-a-vis.
Sure.
I think he also suggests that like maybe they themselves aren't even in the primary Matrix, and it's a whole.
Yeah, there's this whole
What?
theory that at the end when Neo is out
There's been
of
lots
the
of
Matrix,
ones
that
over and over again.
he's still in. because he has like special powers even though he's in the real world.
Yeah.
So like maybe there's a layer.
Oh, there's like layers on layers on layers on layers.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Well, there are some scientists that theorize that our reality is kind of built that way as well.
I don't know. I had a roommate once who
not just scientists, bro.
We had very deep late night conversations about how
scientists feel that way.
There are no. He was saying that there are
Slide whistle playing scientists.
There are fields of science, I'm sure probably fringe science, that theorize that everyone
French.
lives in a reality, in their own reality, where they don't die.
Yeah.
Because of just different parts of like physics, and I don't even know. He explained it to me way better. This is many years ago, and we were super drunk. But this idea that like everybody is in their own sort of pocket
created
universe
reality,
where they, for however it works, just continue to exist. And that it's just different, and it's all intersects, but it's a whole, Well, the interesting thing too is like, so there's also theories just about this idea of like, similarly, like a holographic, like you are projecting reality, and in a sense that is provable, in the sense that like what you see is like you're mostly filling in the blanks. Like I expect to largely see Joe's face look like this because I've seen it look like that before, so this is what his face looks like. I'm not really taking it in. No, it's great, and it's the hair and the whole thing. But my point with that is like that's kind of interesting to explore as a notion, like the idea that you all, which is kind of in the Matrix anyway, that we are controlling our own reality, I guess. Then it's just
or somebody else's, but you could if you
all these ideas are so interesting, but they're really hard to dramatize, which is what the first Matrix did great.
Well, yeah.
Because it was about a guy waking up, and there was a physical and a mental component of that played off each other. And in the second and third one, it was like philosophy 102. Like they're just talking to him, and they're talking back and forth about it. There was no intersection of the ideas with the actual plot.
Okay.
It was just the ideas presented to you, and then it ended. And there was a car chase. That was cool.
The car chase was cool. Can I give you another version of this?
Yeah.
Okay, so they actually get out of the Matrix, right? And then you can't have a world with machines, and so it's a whole demonstration of what we should do. Because I do believe in humanity. I believe in you, and I love you, and I believe in Spider-Man. I do.
You are from New York.
That was real.
We love Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, and I believe that we have a chance. So, like, maybe it is them rebuilding a world without machines. And what does that look like?
Okay. All right. Sure.
No, can't get Dan.
Can't get him on board.
Can't get him.
It's tough. I'm gonna be a tough one to get on board with this one. Not gonna lie, but I hope they do. I hope they bring me on board. I hope I'm like, that's the Matrix movie I've been wanting to see for 20 years.
All right. Well, it's been good to share my pocket universe with you today.
Likewise.
And you. And you're not here. Neither are you, and neither are the cameras, and nothing means anything. But it's been good to spend time in this fake illusion of meaning. And what else do we have, really? Do you guys miss me when I'm done?
Fandom Uncovered on
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Smash that bell.
Yeah.
The Snyder Cut exists, and it's sick.
Sick. Oh, should we talk about that?
Sure.
To Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa.
We got a couple more minutes.
Sick.
Yeah.
That's all we know.
Yeah, that's really all we know, but it exists.
He saw it. The Cinder Cut, as he put it in his...
The Cinder Cut.
He said, I'd like to thank Zack Cinder, S-Y-N-D-E-R, and I saw the Cinder Cut, which led Spencer to theorize
that there are multiple cuts.
There's just like there are multiple realities.
And
is this the Matrix?
And the Cinder Cut.
And the Berenstain Bears. They're all in it.
All right. Did he say anything else?
He just said it was sick. With like 5 I's and 3 C's and a couple K's.
Yeah. So...
Yeah.
Make of that what you will.
I don't know what to make of it. So you have to tell me. That's exciting for Jason Momoa singularly.
Tell you
Was
how to feel
Lisa
about the
Bonet
Snyder
there?
Cut. You have to see it for yourself. Lightning, dystopian world, old-timey TV, Matrix reference.
I don't know. Maybe this is the first step in our new timeline that we've established as of yesterday to actual release of the Snyder Cut.
Went into a parallel reality yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think this could very well be the beginning of something.
All right. Well, I look forward to our next slide.
I always like it when our episodes end with just a lot of like philosophical panic and malaise.
Have you turned on the news?
Yeah, everything's bad.
Terrible. terrifying.
I thought we were the news.
No.
We are buying Greenland. Fandom Entertainment is buying Greenland.
Announcement.
Yes.
And we'll be renaming it
yes.
Fandom Land.
Call Huey Lewis because we got some news.
Yes.
Yep.
Ring that bell for Greenland.
Finland,
Greenland.
Watch our D&D documentary if you haven't already, because it'll make me feel like my life has any meaning at all. And oh god, I don't think I'm helpful on this show anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's just dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really grim.
We need it though. Like,
Do we?
Yeah.
I don't think we do.
the fans say I
think
smile
this
too
might be
much.
the last moment.
No,
So it's
don't
been
say
good.
that.
Farewell. Bye. Hearts, love, sunshine.